Okay. I'd like to call the April 20th meeting to order. It is 6:30 p.m. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additional items for the agenda tonight?
There's not, Michelle.
Okay. Anybody else? Great. Then can I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
I'll move. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I was just listening to make sure the volume was working. Sorry about that. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 18th regular meeting?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion on those minutes? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The consent agenda today is 3.1 through 4.2. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent? That includes the treasurer's report, consideration of claims, transportation report, cafeteria report, the library proposition, the BOCES bids, and the old business policies, and the school calendar.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, discussion on any of these items? Bill, can you start with the 4.2, the agenda, or sorry, the school calendar? Can we talk about that?
Sure can.
Thanks.
So fortunately, we did not use all of our snow days. So we have some days to give back. So my recommendation after talking with the administrative team is to give back days on May 28th, which is the Friday before Memorial Day. So that would extend the Memorial Day weekend. And then 6/18, which we've talked about previously, is Juneteenth. We've already talked about and approved that day as a day off. So we're going to use that as a snow day so staff does not have to report on that day. And then the last June 22nd, 23rd, and 24th would be pre-K through 5 half days. As we discussed last year, 6th grade can no longer be included in the middle school Regents schedule. They are considered elementary for attendance purposes. And then
So you're saying that pre-K through 6th grade will have those half days?
that would be pre-K through 6th grade, correct?
Because it says pre-K through 5th.
No, that should be pre-K through 6th. I'm sorry.
That's on my agenda.
Yep.
Debbie, can you update that, please?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the last day of school now for students is June 24th. And then commencement would be June 25th.
Which is Friday.
Correct.
Okay, and you can talk about that more in detail for your superintendent's report for us, maybe?
Mark will talk more about the idea of around commencement.
Great.
In his report.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. That brings us already to participation. Who knew that was going to happen so quick? My YouTube screen's this way, or whatever way I'm looking, I don't know. So if you see me looking that way, that's why. If you have anything that you would like to bring up in the meeting, this is your chance to type something in the chat, and then we will go from there. We'll give you a couple of minutes or a minute or so to type. There will also be another portion at the end of the meeting, so that you have time to think of something and put it in the chat. If we move on, please type during our meeting and we can get to it when we have another participation. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat, so I'm going to move on. If anybody has anything, again, please put it there and we will get to it at our next time slot. For personnel, I have a resignation. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Jason Johnson as cleaner effective April 13th, 2021, with sincere appreciation for services rendered to the district.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve, and I think I can do them all in one. Do I need to do them individually, Bill? Or should I do them individually?
No, you can do them all together.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the appointment of Melissa Latella, Abigail Riley, and McKenna Jones as probationary elementary teachers effective September 1st at the proper step of the salary schedule as recommended by the interim elementary principal and superintendent.
I'll move.
A second.
Any discussion, I think, would have to be an executive session. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And welcome aboard. Substitute list. I need a motion to approve James Taylor as a substitute cleaner as recommended by the Director of Facilities and the Superintendent.
I'll move.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the spring coaches for 2020-2021 spring sports contingent on significant participants for the competition and COVID-19 safety protocols are followed as recommended by the athletic director and superintendent.
I'll move.
I'll move. I'll second.
Any discussion? What do we have for numbers, Lauren, as far as the teams go? Softball, baseball, tennis, track, golf.
So
Generally
the numbers, yep. So the numbers are a little bit lower and more spread out than usual. So track is 18, baseball, varsity track is 18, varsity baseball I think is at 16, varsity softball is at 19, varsity golf is something that I wanted to talk about, so I'll come back and touch base on that. And then modified baseball numbers look low, but we should be able to field a team for that as well. So varsity golf is a new addition that we wanted to add. We have a group of athletes who their primary sport is golf. And we've worked with Seven Oaks and they're willing to host us and let us use their golf course, which is awesome, and the kids are really excited for. The numbers for that, Bill and I have discussed at length. We want to add golf at so long as it doesn't take away from any other sport. So we were really looking at the numbers and we're looking at the participants who would be joining, and we really didn't want any to jump from one to the other because in particular, baseball is one of the ones that I'm concerned about in the future because the modified numbers are quite low. So if we have a bunch of boys that could potentially play baseball in the future and jump over to golf. So with that, we're keeping the numbers for golf only to those that would be actually competing. So with golf, it's unique. It's only 4 that score and 6 that play. So I think that we're going to try to keep the numbers quite low, even though there might be additional interest because we want to make sure our other programs continue.
Okay, wonderful. That sounds like you guys put a lot of thought into that. Anything else on the spring coaches?
I just wanted to touch base a little bit about the COVID protocols because baseball and softball look a little bit different than our other sports have. So baseball and softball in particular, the guidance that came out from Section 3 and from Nispa say that masks must be worn in the dugout by players and coaches, and that's being interpreted that they only need to be worn in the dugout by players and coaches. So if they're on the field, so long as they're not near anybody, they're positionally spaced so far apart that the masks wouldn't need to be worn. If you're a first baseman, for instance, and somebody's running over, then you would have to put your mask up. That's kind of the interpretation at the league level, at the section level. And I think that's just, I wanted to put that out there because if somebody were to be watching a game, it's going to look a little different than if they were watching a soccer game. But the games are just different. The kids aren't near each other nearly as much.
Anybody else for sports? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. That brings us to 6.2. I need a motion to approve the recommendation of committees on special education and preschool special education.
I'll move. I'll second.
Any discussion would be held in executive session and I will be abstaining. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to appoint Sue Marks and Chris Allman as the chief inspectors, Deborah Curley and Matt Crum as the alternative inspectors/clerks, and the following clerks: Deborah Welsh, Cassandra Britton, Trish, I'm going to say her name wrong, Ranieri, for the annual school board budget vote election on May 18th. Sorry, Trish, for saying your name wrong. From noon to 8 p.m. as recommended by the superintendent.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
We got some new folks doing this. These some new people, right?
I think Sue and Chris, Sue helped last year, right, Matt? But Chris is new?
Chris is new.
Sue did
And-
help last year.
Chris is new, and Trish, Ranieri, and Cassandra Britton are all new.
Yeah, thanks to them for doing this.
Thank you.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. A motion to approve the destruction of the ballots, blank and completed, from 2020-2021 budget vote, except for absentee ballots as recommended by the district clerk and superintendent.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Bill or Debbie, is this a yearly thing, or can you explain this a little bit for me?
I was going to ask that too.
It was new last year. When I went to the district clerk workshop, they recommended that we destroy everything except for the absentee ballots at our district clerk workshop.
Fair enough.
Which for last year, if you recall, is we're not getting rid of much.
That's right.
Time to buy a new shredder, huh?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. I need a motion to approve the 2021-2022 tentative administrative budget of Madison Oneida Board of Cooperative Education Services in the amount of $5,773,568. Sorry about that. And shall also allocate as contingent expense in its share as said by the administrative budget in accordance with section 1950 of the New York State Education Law.
I'll move.
A second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 There is trying to look to see. Debbie, can I do all the BOCES elections together? I think I can.
You can do them all together.
Okay, so I need a motion to authorize the clerk to submit and clarify its ballot in the name of Douglas Guston, Harold Jarko, Joseph Monfilito, to serve as member of the Madison Oneida Board of Cooperative Extension Services for the BOCES for the term of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2024.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Thank you, Harry.
Thanks to all
We
of them.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
And
Really
you
do.
to everybody else. But Harry, on behalf of us, we really appreciate you.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the 2021-2022 transportation request received by April 1st as recommended by the superintendent. And I will be abstaining.
I'll
I'll
move.
move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? The bus has never stopped at my house,
Is-
so I'm asking it to. That's my request.
Is this the normal amount of requests? This feels like a low number of requests.
Since I've been on the board, this is normal.
Normal.
Okay. I thought there were a handful more than this normally, but okay.
No. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all. Slightly odd, but okay. A motion to adopt the 2021-2022 school calendar is recommended by the superintendent.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Second.
Any discussion?
So
Billy,
should
oh, go ahead.
should the June 23rd and 24th on this also be changed to pre-K through 6?
They are. They're listed as pre-K through
It
6.
does say.
Okay. I need my glasses. It looked like a 5 to me. Thank you.
So first is for September 2nd.
And we are still keeping snow days next year, correct, Bill?
Yes, we will have 5 traditional snow days built into the calendar.
Good.
I think it's worth noting October 11th is listed as Indigenous Fuels Day, which is thanks to
Noticed that.
some work from some of our intrepid students. So
Yeah.
thanks to them.
Noticed that.
Mark, would you please reach out to them and let them know that whatever the outcome of this vote is, let them know that that is on the calendar. I mean, I want to say that it was approved, but we haven't gotten to that stage yet. So when we approve it, I'm assuming that could you do that for us?
I will, and I know they're looking forward to other things as well in the future. So I'm sure it's not the last you've heard from them.
Good
In
for
only
them.
the best possible way.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A motion to accept the monetary donation of $4,450 from the Hamilton Emerald Foundation with sincere appreciation.
Move.
A second.
Any discussion? Thank you very much, Emerald
Thank
Foundation.
you.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. That brings us to policies. We have a first read, so it's a discussion only. We have a policy 0014 for gender neutral single occupancy bathrooms, 1010 school community relations, 1011 community use of school facilities, 1013 visitors to the school, 1015 operation of motor vehicles on district property, 1016 public complaints, and 1020 records management and access. I'll turn it over to the policy group and whoever else would like to speak.
Yeah, so we got quite a bit done that time. You guys have the changes. Do you have any questions?
I don't think
I-
I don't think we had anything major from these. It was a major changes, mostly cleaning some stuff up and
Yeah, they
some
look pretty.
suggested stuff from BOCES.
They look pretty straightforward.
The only question I had is that it talks about vehicle stickers, but to my knowledge, we don't have vehicle parking stickers now. Is that correct?
Just for students.
Okay. And in the future, you're going to have them for everybody?
Well, I guess we'll have to talk to the policy committee about whether we want to.
Okay. That's what I was.
Yeah, I thought we talked about that.
Yeah. Well, you'll be having, we did get rid of telling people to park behind the ag building.
Oh, there you
Well,
go.
that's good.
That's
So,
Hasn't been an ag building for several years.
yeah, so.
So they were in
Um,
violation of that policy for a long time.
We were, yeah.
So
you
that
guys
that
will
was
check
my
the
only
sticker
question about
part.
that one. Yes, Bill knows because I texted Morgan and said, "Do you have a sticker?" Like, I
No.
just, like I didn't know if I just was like really not paying attention or if I was, anyway. So okay. And then my only other question was records management and access, which is 1020. So it's the first B reads, 1B reads, the district's records management officer is name, comma, title, comma, business address, comma, business telephone number, comma, business email address, which I don't think is actually all meant to be there. I think that's meant to be replaced with the actual data that represents those. And it doesn't, neither 1B or 2B actually list the name of the individual, but it does give their individual email address. So I sort of feel like if we're going to give the individual email address, we ought to actually name the individual. And then obviously this is going to need to be reviewed
Well,
annually.
Corey and Bill, help me out here if you could. It's been a while, but I believe that is appointed every reorganizational meeting. So it's kind of a plug and place. Is that right, Bill? Or-
That's correct.
But if you, so.
Yeah, I would, unless we are required to, Bill, I would say, I think we had thought of removing as much personal as possible. So maybe, and I think this may be one of the policies, as a policy committee, we were not doing a good job of conveying the
Updating.
changes we are making to Debbie. So
Yeah.
we're doing better now though.
We're doing
We're
much.
trying, Debbie.
Well, better. I'm not saying perfect. So
Yeah, I mean, the
our
only
camera's off,
thing,
so we can't see her rolling her
that's
head.
right. The only thing I would say about that is that it looks to me like that name, comma, title, comma, business address is the suggested list of information that should be provided from some master policy. And so if we're supposed to be providing a name in there, but I'm ambivalent either way. I just putting an email address without an actual name feels like a bad idea. Like I don't.
Well,
Yeah,
I would also say maybe like if we have a generic email address, if we have to have an email address, change it to a generic HCS records at hamiltoncentral.org or something.
Yeah,
I agree.
But if we don't need that, Bill, I would say you just get rid of it.
Okay.
Or a superintendent email address and a district clerk email address, which I don't think we have right now. But those were my.
Thank you for those, Ellen.
Thanks.
Anything else on those 7 policies? Oh, go ahead, Ellen.
The gender neutral bathroom one, that looks like a brand new policy. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is it built off of a template or?
Yes, that was recommended from the BOCE policy survey.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
If there's nothing else on policies, we can move to 7.1, but I don't want to hurry us. So
If I have a policy question, but it's not in regards to any of these, would it still be appropriate to mention it here or?
I would reach out to Deb Curley with
Okay.
the question, and then she can reference the specific policy and then bring it to the policy committee.
Well, my question was too, like, I'm wondering if we have a policy, so I'll reach out to Deb.
Okay.
Thanks.
administrators' reports are up next. So I'll start with Kevin.
Good evening, everyone. So in my report, I had made mention that there was a newsletter. Well, first of all, that the SEL team got together. So the counselors, myself, the principals, Bill, got together and talked about how we're supporting families, students, teachers through these stressful COVID times. Bill had sent out to us an article he shared with us. It was in reference to a study done by the University of Michigan, which found that through surveys that almost 50% of parents had noticed a new or a worsening mental health condition in their teenagers since the start of COVID. Since we're coming back full time, we thought it would be prudent to get together and try and see what we could do. So the counselors did put out a newsletter either today or yesterday. I saw it come across my email, helping parents at home. Earlier in the week, they did send out an email to teachers with signs to look for students, how to do inquiry for kids who might not be willing to talk about it. Both of the newsletter and the email that went to teachers shared resources for families and for teachers to help students. And obviously our counselors are already meeting with kids, and we're seeing I think the effects of that here at school. As smoothly as things have gone, we definitely have noticed that families that were in stress, maybe prior to COVID, are even more stressed now. That's been heightened. So we're trying to reach out to families and students and teachers to try and help them through that process. We have our Crisis Prevention Institute training tomorrow for all of our aides and TAs. That's done by Daniel Bennett, our behavioral support specialist. That's a 3-hour refresher. It's actually a 4-hour refresher. They're able to do an hour ahead of time online refresher that they do annually to make sure that they hold that certificate. The CPI Crisis Prevention Institute training is designed to de-escalate situations for students who are in stress, students that are maybe behaving badly, where you de-escalate the situation, come in and kind of make things worse, but de-escalate it without any kind of physical kind of need. It's a verbal kind of de-escalation and how to do that. So they go through that training annually. Really just been busy, really busy with CSE meetings. And again, this is the height of the annual season. So we have 14 CSE meetings this week, 16 next week. And that's a real orchestration between the schedule, the budget, student needs. So there has to be a clear kind of plan that connects all three of those areas, so that what you're planning for students, you're able to deliver for them as well too. So there's a process in that. And been helping Heather with the hiring process. She's probably going to speak about it, but I'm super excited about the candidates you approved tonight. We have tomorrow, we're going to interview some more candidates that we're very exciid about. I think we got out ahead of it before most schools and had some really good luck with hiring. And tomorrow I think we'll continue with that. Got to drive the Suburban this week to go pick up a student. I think Bill drove last week. So we got to wear our bus driver hat, which happens from time to time. Chris was subbing for me today because I was short an aide for a little while. So we're all kind of doing a little bit everything this time of year. But any questions?
Just thank you all for that. It's appreciated.
Just for the record, I think I'm a little better bus driver than Bill. Just want to put that out there.
I'm so glad you made sure that got on.
I don't know about that.
Well, the student that I drove for, had mentioned that. So.
Do you want that noted, Kevin?
Yes, duly.
I thought I did a fine job on my route.
Yeah, I did a little better as well.
But there's no better crosswalk assistant than Matt. Crum.
Oh,
So,
all right.
yeah, 2 days in a row now.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's see how warm the temperature has to get for them to go out and do the crosswalk.
I did have a child that came home and said, "You wouldn't believe Mr. Crum was worked in the crosswalk today." I think were his words. So.
Kevin, are you all set? We'll pass it on to Matt now, I guess, since I already brought up his name.
Sure. Thank you, Michelle. This will really
Actually, yeah. Wait, you're in a
essentially
different
be
section. Hold on.
the budget update.
Yeah, let's not do
going to-
you.
No, you want to skip me?
Yeah, I'm gonna skip you again.
Okay.
Let's do Mark instead. We'll get back to you.
Hi, everyone. As you read from the report, we have a lot coming up in the next few weeks to end off the year. Prom, different banquets, award ceremonies, May Jam, all of the testing that is associated with the end of the year, 3 through 8, Regents exams, final exams, AP exams. So a lot of work has gone into planning for all of those. Some of the different events that we're planning for, guidance came out last Monday to kind of help us with those different events. Graduation, currently it looks like graduation will be a lot like last year on the stadium field, where spectators will be in the field area, graduates will be up in the stands. Once again, Sue Lehman is on it, so she's going to make sure that everything flows smoothly. She won't accept anything but a smooth graduation. So I'm confident we'll be prepared for that. Prom is another thing we began discussions about. The 11th grade class has put together a proposal. Obviously, prom will not look the same as prom has traditional years, but they're trying to sift through all the guidance that was presented by New York State to make sure that and put together a plan that would be acceptable and keep everybody safe and something the students will enjoy as well. So a lot has been going on with that stuff. Leading up to this meeting, this is our second week of 4 days in person. So before break, a lot of planning took place in order to make that happen. And the transition, as far as the students and the teachers making it all happen, did a wonderful job that first week. It's a lot. It felt like a new school year, but everybody was prepared, and I believe that at least the first few days went very smooth, and so it went well overall. We also have National Technical Honor Society had inductions since our last meeting. So we have 6 individuals who were inducted into that. So congratulations to them. We, through secondary steering, and Chris Rogers, we have the screens inside the building now as well. So that recognition was up on the board for a while. We have student artwork up. We've been able to communicate with students and teachers about different events that are occurring in the building. SATs, counselors, if they need students for different things or to sign up for different things. 5-hour course is coming up for driver's ed. So we have that up there. So that's been useful in the communication within the district. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. We've had a lot. Yeah, I think that about covers it. There's still a lot there, but if anybody has any questions about any of that.
I've just got one, Mark. I'm not familiar with May Jam. What is that?
So May Jam has been a tradition at Hamilton for a long period of time. It came about, I learned from Dana Chapman when I first started here. It came about because our kids are so responsible and they take care of the school. So they wanted to come up with a way to celebrate that. And so May Jam was born off of that. And I believe that the students at the time brought that to the administration. And so they created a day and they call it May Jam. So it's kind of like a field days of sorts. Okay. And recently we have the students in the morning, and then around 11:30, we'll have a yearbook dedication, reveal the yearbook to the student body. And then students are able to grab their lunch, go outside, different clubs and organizations set up different stations where kids can play games, talk, hang out with their friends. And traditionally ends also with a faculty senior softball game. And so that's a bit of that tradition.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That the seniors have never won.
Maybe you can do one of those donkey games.
One year
with
they were getting
basketball.
close, but then the thunderclouds came in.
That's right. We had to call that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
And
seen
that
how
was not
Raider ball.
cool calling that.
I've seen how Raider ball gets refereed, so I know exactly how the faculty keep winning.
Thank you, Mark. Heather?
Hello, everybody. So as you can see from my April report, the bulk of April has been taken up with returning to a 4-day in-person learning schedule. And so pretty much I kind of broke it down a little bit differently because every one of these elements had to be addressed in order to do that. So a lot of health and safety concerns in terms of going from 6 feet to 3 feet, installing barriers, maneuvering classrooms around to accommodate those types of environments, as well as staffing had to change to accommodate that. So that was in the classrooms, and also, really looking at cafeteria, although I didn't have to do any physical moving, a lot of counting of chairs and so forth like that. So to make sure that we had space for everybody, the cafeteria and the half of the high school gym. Instructionally, teachers there was a lot of individual discussions and team discussions about how to switch from a hybrid model of instruction to the 4-day learning schedule. Reimagining the Wednesday remote day, talking a lot about how they were going to continue to use technology or change their use of technology to make those adjustments. For the most part, teachers that had remote students continue to have remote students, but that was perhaps the first time that teachers had in the elementary had in-person students and remote students at the same time. So that took some adjusting. And some technology. Thank you to Chris for helping out with a lot of that. Also, to return to the 4-day in-person learning model, there was a lot of communication that had to happen between parents and families, and adjusting, making sure that we knew what students were doing what, making sure the parents were aware of the schedule. And so there were many individual phone calls, emails to discuss the specifics of the changes that happened. So a lot of the month was taken up with that. Then also at the same point in time, we began pre-K and K registration. Also, we had to plan the kindergarten screening, which is going to be next week for incoming kindergartners for next year. Also planning out the pre-K screening, which will happen in June. So we started looking at that, and also completed the pre-K and kindergarten, the initial round of pre-K and kindergarten registration, even though that's an ongoing process and will continue throughout the summer. But we have some, good numbers at this point in time. Thursday will be our New York State assessments. So took a look at how they're going to be changed this year. They've gone from a 2-day to a 1-day. Thursday, we're going to give the ELA assessment in the elementary. And May 6th, we're going to be giving the math assessment. We've had a lot of scheduling pieces with that, with setting up accommodations, but then also, making some preliminary plans for makeup tests for students that have been quarantined and may need to take the test at a later point in time. So that's a whole nother schedule that has to be in place. So lots of scheduling this month. The other piece that we've looked at, New York State released some guidance on the next generation learning standards. So they have also adjusted the rollout of the standards for ELA and math. So we've looked at that. They're going to be, pushing them out 1 year, which is great news, especially as you remember, a couple of months ago, we were really looking at some of the math curriculums, which had to kind of get put on the back burner. So we have a little bit more time And we've started talking about plans over the summer to look at these various math curriculums in detail. Also looking at class placement survey went out to parents. So we're looking ahead to the 21-22 school year, building class lists, and having parents give some feedback regarding that. The hiring committee, we went through several different rounds to make the recommendations, reviewed many resumes, did screening interviews, committee interviews, submitted virtual teaching videos, contacted references and so forth, and really excited about the upcoming year with the new hires. I also already started taking a look at some professional development, preliminary, like setting up some different plans for the team, the incoming teachers. So start to think about that. So other events that are in the works, we have our field day, and I have begun to talk about what that might look like, and that will be in June. Allison Farrar and Sarah Zogby are looking at a spring virtual play, 5th grade moving up ceremony. So the same guidance that Mark was referring to graduation, the 5th grade teachers and I have started looking at how to plan the 5th grade moving up ceremony, in that as well as the technology part of it. And then as an admin team today, we talked about summer school, and then I also have individually met with teachers to get some ideas for the needs for summer school this year, as well as some ideas, implementation ideas for summer school too. And I think that's about it. Any questions? Righty.
Thanks, Heather. Chris?
Hello, everyone. So beyond what is on my report, of course, everybody has mentioned, technology department's been spending a lot of time supporting a lot of different initiatives that are going on concurrently around the building, including upcoming testing, and the technology needs that the teachers and the students and the parents had, moving from 2 days a week to 4 days a week. One thing that I would like to mention, and further down in my report, I talk about I'm now beginning to get the opportunity to do some planning for next year, which is really exciting. But I just wanted to just say that there's been just tremendous, remarkable growth in terms of technology when it comes to our teachers this year, and I really want to capitalize on that. If things had gone normally, if there had been no pandemic, it would have taken, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years for the faculty as a whole to have gotten this level of competency, and it's happened so fast. So I really want to think about and work with the administrative team about how we can capitalize on this huge growth in knowledge successfully and keep the momentum going. In my report, I mentioned some of the things that I would like to do next year. I really want to capitalize on the arrangements that we have with MORIC in terms of model schools, getting professionals out here to work with our teachers and continue that sort of growth. Also, the New York State in December adopted what they call their digital literacy standards, which are a set of standards K through 12 about what it is that students are supposed to be able to do at each of those grade markers. I've begun working with Heather on. We've had some meetings about those standards, and we'd like to get the technology committee working on doing a crosswalk between their curriculum and those standards, and making sure that we're working those in. What students are supposed to be able to do at each grade point. A couple of things that weren't on my notes that I wanted to mention is that Mark mentioned that we're going to be having the graduation outside of the stadium field. Of course, we still have some sporting events going on there. The HCS sports streaming project has been a huge hit this year. So we'd like to, and we anticipate that continuing moving forward, and other events happening. So we recently had fiber optic cable run between the bus garage, which is where the closest our internet goes, out to the press box at the stadium field. So now we will have high-speed internet out there, so we can continue our productions, streaming events and such out there. Anybody have any questions for me? We're excited about that, by the way.
Yeah, it's great. I'm not skipping Matt yet, but Bill, you're up next on the agenda.
Okay. So before I start deep into my report, I would just like to thank the administrative team, the faculty, Andrea and her team in the cafeteria, Randy Freeman and his team in the buildings and grounds, and Lorna Simchek with transportation and her team for our transition back to 4 days of in-person learning. It's gone remarkably well. And it's a testament to the hard work and the planning that took place by everybody involved. Our faculty has done a tremendous job welcoming kids back. The administrative team, as you heard, are wearing many different hats. We have crossing guards, we have bus drivers, we have substitutes. Mark has been in the classroom substituting, Heather's been in the classroom, Chris, Kevin, Matt's been doing some cross guarding. So everybody's contributing to this transition back, and I think it's gone remarkably well. I know there's some frustration with pickup and drop off. But considering the amount of traffic flow, it's really only a couple minutes that we're at high peak. And I'm just asking for our parents that are driving to be patient and adhere to our different drop-off sections, middle school, high school to the left, elementary through the bus circle. And Laura Russin and Jen Brooks are out there doing a tremendous job directing traffic. So please listen to them. If they ask you to move up, just please move up, and so we can keep that traffic flowing, because I think given the volume of traffic, really it's only a 2 or 3 minute congestion period, and I think it's working really well. Since our transition back, unfortunately, we have had some positive cases that have been reported. We have a number of students and staff that are in quarantine, so I will just plead to parents, if there's any type of symptoms, please keep your children home, err on the side of caution. And call and ask for your primary care physician or whoever you need to from a medical standpoint. Whether you should come to school, reach out to Betsy Marcellus, our school nurse, but please err on the side of caution. If there's any type of symptoms, just stay home. It's okay. The building principals and the faculty will work with you for remote instruction. So we just want to be really, really careful about transmission, and exposure. In addition to my board report, Heather talked about the implementation of the next gen standards, so I won't repeat that. In regards to health and safety, immunizations, the state has extended immunizations for remote learners to the end of the year, but I'm happy to report through the good work of Betsy Marcellus that all of our students are vaccinated. Our reports have been submitted and uploaded to the state, so we're good there.
Bill?
Yes.
And I know we're going out of order, but because you were just talking about quarantines, there was a question, and I just think that it's the time to ask it. So I want to just ask it now.
Sure.
With students that are out of HCS and quarantine, are siblings required or recommended to stay out for any period of time?
That's a determination by the Department of Health.
Okay.
I can't make that recommendation. The Department of Health is the only entity that's allowed to put somebody in quarantine.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And then lastly, I would like to talk about the Board of Regents. There's been a lot of talk from a national standpoint, from a state standpoint, and even from a district standpoint on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Board of Regents is developing a framework that's supposed to be released in May that talks about those 3 key bullet points. And I'm going to propose a policy draft to the policy committee, which will then come to the board. in response to the district's response to equity, inclusion, and diversity. And it'll have 3 tenets that'll be addressed. Educational equity, based on the principles of fairness, ensuring that every student has access to the resources and educational rigor that they need at the right moment in their education. Inclusive education, based on the principles of acceptance and inclusion of all students. And then diversity, meaning students, staff, families, and community are our greatest strength, and the diversity is viewed as an asset. Diversity will mean the condition of being different or having differences, including but not limited to sex, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, age, socioeconomic class, religion, and ability, and other human differences. Embracing these diversities and moving beyond tolerance and celebration to inclusivity and respect to help our district culture. So those will be the 3 tenets of that policy that I'll be proposing to the policy committee, and that will bring to the board. And then we'll be working from a district standpoint on our diversity, inclusion, and equity across the pre-K through 12 continuum.
Thank you, Bill. That was my policy question. So now I don't have to email you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. I'm glad I can answer that for you. And that is my report. Any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That really does bring us to Matt this time. So
Thank you.
Matt, it is your turn.
Thank you. I'm chomping at the bit. I actually have some good news, which is not usual when it comes to the budget. Up until about 2 weeks ago, the executive proposal for the state budget for 21-22 was not real favorable for school districts. A lot has changed. So the actual adopted state budget, which we found out about just about a week and a half ago, is really positive. I mean, we're really seeing some aid increases that we haven't seen in a long time. So the adopted proposal, first of all, I want to just touch on what's not in there that was what was in the original executive proposal. First and foremost, there was a freeze in foundation aid, and there was a local deficit reduction assessment. I don't know if you remember that acronym. And basically what the governor was proposing was that dollar for dollar, every federal dollar through federal stimulus funds that was going to go to school districts state aid was going to be reduced by that amount to help close the state budget gap. So there is no local district reduction. So I'll talk about federal funding in a minute, but it looks as if the federal funding allocations for districts really will go to the districts. So that's out. There's the coupling or the combining of 10 different expense-based aids, BOCES aid, transportation aid, amongst others. Those are the 2 primary ones. That was stricken from the adopted budget. So those expense-driven aids will continue to flow as they have been in the past, which is really good for districts from a planning standpoint. The other thing, another major one, was the tinkering with the STAR program. The proposal in the executive budget could have potentially reduced STAR reimbursements by as much as $1.35 billion. So that was also eliminated from the enacted budget. So those were a few of the things that were really concerning in January that are not in the adopted budget. In addition to that, the state in the enacted budget is increasing foundation aid for 21-22 by about $1.4 billion statewide. You've heard me say before that roughly 2/3 of the districts in the state are underfunded based on the current formula. We are one of those roughly 30% that is overfunded. But all districts for next year are getting at least 2%. Hamilton is bumped up into the 3% category based on our some measures with regard to our population density. I'll get into that a little more on Thursday night. So a 3% foundation aid for us, a little over $100,000, as compared to a freeze plus a reduction, much better news. Federal stimulus monies, a lot of money is coming to school districts. Our allocation on our latest aid run is north of $1 million. It's actually roughly about 1.5 billion, two different pots of money. It's a one-time allocation to be spent over multiple years. Again, I'll talk more about it on Thursday. The important part to really the message I need to share at this point is all of these monies are being treated as grants and aid. So it's not received by districts in the form of general aid or state aid like we get our foundation aid or any of our expense-driven aids. These are funds that we have to apply for, and we don't really know what the process is going to be to apply for these funds. Budgets have to be approved, we have to incur expenses, and then we have to be reimbursed for those expenses. So all these funds are accounted for in the special aid fund. There's also going to be some requirements for spending these dollars. It's not going to just be, here, cut you a check, do what you want with it. But that's a good thing. Sort of the buzzword that we're hearing right now is loss of learning. So we actually had a meeting today at the end of the day for early conversations about a potential summer program, because some of these grant funds, you're going to have to earmark money to address loss of learning. And a couple of the ways in which we can do that is through summer programming and after school programming next year. So these funds will allow us to do more. It's going to also help alleviate some of the pressures on the budget, probably for the next 2 to 3 years. So there's a lot of questions still. There's a lot of guidance still to come, but certainly good news. And it appears as if those monies will be more accessible for us and other school districts compared to what the executive proposal had suggested in January. So with that said, and again, I'm just kind of teasing this, we'll get into more depth on Thursday night when I present a draft to you for adoption. A budget that is tax cap compliant, 1.6% tax levy increase. The expenditure increase, the budget to budget increase is 4.76%. The alarm might be going off. That seems like quite a range for expenses that much. That's due to the first round of payments, principal and interest payments on our capital project. So we have additional principal and interest payments, debt service payments on the expenditure side, but we're also going to see a significant increase in building aid from New York State on the revenue side. So net of the debt service increase, our budget to budget increase is just under 1.5%. So if you kind of take out the debt service, the new debt service, and the building aid, we're roughly 1.5%, in terms of operations, if you will. So in a couple tweaks with staffing and programming, but really no cuts. We're not eliminating anything. And as a matter of fact, we're eliminating one position through attrition. We've had 6 retirements. We'll replace 5 of those, but we're also adding a couple of FTEs back into the budget. So we'll get back into that on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. We have our special meeting at 6 o'clock. So I will be presenting the draft budget and dive into some more of this stuff in a little bit more detail. But all in all, it's pretty good news from a budget standpoint as far as what's going to be proposed to you for adoption and then ultimately voted on in May. But also with the federal stimulus monies that we anticipate having access to for the next couple years should really help us in doing some more things, but also hopefully alleviating some of the pressures of what have now become the recurring challenges when it comes to budgeting. So it's sort of brief, and we'll get into it more on Thursday, but if there's any questions, I'm certainly do the best I can at this point.
Okay, I think we likely will have more on Thursday for you when we see some more things. Sure. So be ready for us then, but we'll let you off the hook tonight. How's that sound?
Fair enough.
All right, Jen, I'm going to have you start with the steering team update.
So the elementary steering team met on March 25th. And basically it was Megan Kovac from Colgate Athletics had quite a conversation with us and just some ideas on how we can work together. They're currently pretty involved with Sherburne-Earlville School District. So they'd like to mimic a lot of the things that they're already doing there. Some examples that she gave us was like Motivational Monday, where a different athlete each week records a message of lots of different topics that our kids are experiencing. And then we broadcast that to our students. They talked a lot about incorporating like character traits and working with us on our positivity project, which could be pretty cool. They're talking about possibly post-pandemic being able to send a group of athletes to maybe alleviate some of the aids and stuff at recess time. Maybe, you know, some of the basketball players will shoot hoops with our kids, or football players toss a football around, to just try to engage in conversation and questions, and think the kids would think that that was pretty cool. They talked about possibly doing a letter writing campaign, like a pen pal program, to work with our students on writing, which was really great. And then there's some one-offs. They were really intrigued by the HCS Reads program. They really liked being able to participate in that this year. And I think they sounded like they wanted to really be a lot more involved in that in the future. And Megan is supposed to be creating like a one-pager of all the offerings that they could collaborate with us on after we kind of get more of an idea of what next year may or may not look like. So it was really engaging, and look forward to seeing what they can do with us.
That's great. If you have any questions for Jen or the elementary team? Corey?
Secondary, we rescheduled our meeting, so we'll be meeting next week.
Sounds good. That brings us to the PTO update. I forgot, because we're on a Tuesday, I wasn't thinking meeting ahead of time, so I forgot to ask them for an update until this morning, and I did not hear back from them, so my bad on that. And if I do get something from them, I will pass it along and have Debbie put in the notes or something like that. Emerald Foundation, I did not make the meeting, but I know that they approved the one grant request that they had in, and they are working with Bill and I on doing a superintendent update for alumni. And that will be in, I want to say in June, right? I don't remember the date at the moment. Early June. And they have a couple topics that they want covered from Bill, and then just really have it being opened. And we're hoping to get a handful of alum, hopefully several handfuls, to join in, and people that aren't typically involved. So, you know, they're not looking for me to be on it as an alum, but the people that are across the country, here and there and everywhere. So we're hoping that that goes really well, and that that could be something that could continue on a yearly basis. So we'll have more to come on that. So that was the Emerald Foundation. Next up is the school board evaluation discussion. We need to discuss dates for 2021-2022 school year and a date for a retreat with the superintendent. To start that discussion, I was thinking, as far as the evaluation goes, we do have that eval doc that we've been working off of with a timeline. And I would like to suggest, as just a starting for the conversation, that we stick with that, adjusting the dates as we see fit each year, but kind of going with that plan of the superintendent having the mid-year. We had talked about maybe us not doing a mid-year, and then both of us having the end of the year evaluation. So I'm just starting it off there.
I guess I would just say that I'm open to not doing a board mid-year evaluation, but if you guys want it, so be it.
Okay.
I think it's fine if maybe we just have like not a written one, but just an informal check-in.
Yeah.
Or not informal, but just an oral check-in with each other.
That's a
I
good
like that idea.
I agree, Corey. That's a good idea.
Thanks. So what I'll do, I'll either recreate for next year that same document that we have already that we're using for this year, or make notes on this year's, and share that with you all so you can see it. And obviously, we'll go over it in the summer to set the actual dates, but we'll kind of stick. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, my work phone was ringing. That we'll just stick with those dates, generally speaking. So I will update that for us. And then a date for the retreat with the superintendent. Bill, do you have any thoughts on where we should start with that?
I think we should do what we did last year, a midsummer retreat to develop goals and brainstorm. I'd also like to propose the thought of a mid-year retreat with the board and superintendent, just to touch base, especially considering the challenges that we've had this year. It would have been nice to have a time where we could get together and talk about the district and what we're doing and the direction we're going in a retreat type setting. So I think at mid-year and an midsummer retreat to set goals for the upcoming year, I think would be appropriate.
What month have the summer retreats traditionally been held?
Mostly in July.
Yep, late July.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we all look at a calendar and see what?
I assume we're going to be back to in-person meetings by then. Do we have any idea on that?
I hope so.
Well, I think for that, we can be. I mean, maybe there's more discussion on in-person, but for that, because or do we need to have it live streamed? I don't know. But for that, it's a different type of a setup. I don't think we need it live streamed. I think it's just us. And so we could find a big enough room like the gym or something, or find a different space someplace else, but that we can spread out and be socially distant and still be able to meet in person. So I think the retreat, we can find a way to do that in person.
So then for me, I would say it would have to be starting in August, because I'll be gone most of July, not all of July.
When do you get back, Corey? Can I ask that?
I don't have the plan yet, but if it was the first week of August, I can make sure to be back for sure.
I'm not available the first week in August.
How about the week of the 8th through the 14th?
Yeah.
Why don't we tentatively say let's shoot for that? I'm sure a lot of that will have to do with the speaker we want to get to, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The this will bleed over to the knowledge sharing, but the attending a open meetings session last week, it is pretty clear that if we are doing board business like setting goals, that does have to be an open meeting. I don't think it means it needs to be live streamed, but I think it does mean that it does need to be open to the public in some capacity. If we get lunch, I don't know if we have to provide lunch for the people in attendance, but it seems rude not to as well. So,
well,
but that's no legal requirement.
I was wondering for that if we broke a session up, because I was thinking about that too, Corey. If we broke a session up where there was the goal setting would be the live streamed or however we need to do it, depending on the space that we're in, because I want to make sure that if we're going to open it to the public, that we have space for them to come, right, with socially distance and such, or live stream it. But then there could be another piece of the meeting that we work on team building and such of that sort, and that doesn't need to be open to the public, correct?
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Bill, I want to abide by open meeting law, but I know that depends on who you talk to. Everyone has their own interpretation of what that is. But Bill, could you talk to our legal counsel or BOCES and find out what their interpretation is on that?
On the board retreat?
Yeah,
Yes.
as far as goal
Well, this was
setting.
a seminar from our attorneys, correct?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Okay.
So that,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
I
there
think
you
that's
go.
what they'll say.
Yeah.
So any retreat that doesn't involve board business, so if we want to get together and do a team building or do communication, or if we want to have a barbecue, that's fine. But as soon as we start talking about
I got you.
goals or anything, then that turns into an open meeting.
So I kind of go to Michelle's option of, splitting it up.
Split it up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And just looking at dates, I'm not available the Thursday, the 12th that week. I have another retreat for work.
So it's between the 8th and the 11th.
Do I have that retreat too, Jen, or no?
Yes, you do. It's a DOC retreat.
That's what I wondered. Okay.
Okay, so
Don't tell Pam.
Bill and I can work on nailing down a date a little bit tighter than just a couple of days, and so that we can all save it on our calendar and be able to do that in August. Sound good?
So tentatively, we're thinking about the second week of August.
Yeah, 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th. 8th is a Sunday, but we have done board retreat on a weekend before. I don't necessarily know if we want to do it on Sunday, but
Our last one was on a Saturday. Is that correct?
I think so,
I feel
yeah.
like
Yes,
that
it
could
was.
have been done on a weekend
Yeah, it was a Saturday.
or on a weeknight.
Okay.
I can also just say, I think if we're thinking in terms of what it looks like for the goal setting, we've had a facilitator for the last few years. I'm happy if we have one. I also think if we don't have one, I'd be willing to risk, let's see if we can do it ourselves. If somebody's available from BOCES and will come, great. If not, and that puts us in a bind of dates, maybe we try to do it ourselves.
I agree. I
That
feel
puts
like
us at a risk of being like, oh, we need to do this again because we did a terrible job.
I think, especially with the way we set up our goals for this year, that
Right.
provides us a good outline of a good way to set up goals for the future. So I agree with you on that, Corey.
Yeah, I think our past two experiences, I think we're capable of setting our own goals now.
Next up is knowledge sharing. We had a bunch of people that went to a workshop that I really wanted to go to with our lawyers, and that I forgot what day of the week it was, and the email just sat in my inbox. And when I found out that I missed it, I was really upset. So will somebody fill me in on that workshop, Corey or Bill or
So I shared
Susan?
one thing with Michelle and Bill and Debbie over email and Bill was there and Debbie was as well. But I think the two concerns for me were what I just said about the retreat, making sure that that's open when necessary. And then the other thing is it seems like we can't simply use boilerplate language in our reasons for going into executive sessions. We can't just copy paste and say contract negotiations. We need to say contract negotiations with which bargaining unit. We need to have some more specificity in there.
Corey, that
I'm
was my
sure-
concern too.
Yeah. And one thing that concerned me about that is they said that there are watchdog groups who just go through minutes and find violations, and they'll bring lawsuits simply because it's legal for them, if we're not in compliance, to also charge us the attorney's fees for it. So there's some financial incentive for certain law firms to bring lawsuits against that, and it seems like an easy fix. So I think Bill's aware of that, so we can get that sorted out with him and Debbie, making sure we're in compliance.
Yep.
Corey, thanks for bringing that up. And Bill, maybe we could remember to talk about that at the summer retreat. That'd be helpful.
Sure. Yep. Debbie and I have already had conversations about that, and she has the numerations for that you can use to go into exec session.
And I think also that means that part of that is also having enough in there that we know as a board when we're deviating from what's said there, right? There's a specific enough that if it says, sometimes it might say something and we say like, well, this is close enough, right? We don't want to be doing stuff like that, right? We want to have enough specificity that during the executive session, we can only talk about that thing that's stated to the public.
Did anybody else go to anything that we should share out? Is there anything else from that workshop?
Michelle, I just want to add, on April 27th, I'll be attending virtually an equity in education seminar from discussion to action through the New York State Council of School Superintendents. So I'll report at next month's meeting.
Great.
Also, too, I just got in the mail today another Nispa event on your school district's role in defeating uncivil discourse in our society. I don't know if anybody else got this as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's on May 19th.
I didn't check my mailbox today, so
Okay.
maybe.
Well, and the first 250 registrants receive a snack box as an incentive. So,
I might have to get registered tomorrow.
But yeah, it sounds
Corey,
pretty.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty interesting, and they're talking about some of like the state ESSA's plan and things like that too. So,
And it is free.
and it is free.
Yay. Thanks, Jen. I will pull that out of my mailbox tomorrow, hopefully. I'm not getting it tonight. Nispa update, Jen.
I don't really
think this
have
is you,
much.
isn't it? No, okay.
Yeah, it is. So the biggest thing that they were focusing on was the state budget, which, as Matt reported in way more detail than I ever could. So it's kind of rested now that that was released. It's kind of going through a little rest. They are starting to focus more on the DEI stuff that Bill had mentioned. So I think that will be some forthcoming items. But nothing huge to report.
Great. Well, thank you again for doing that, keeping us on track. It is now, we're at 8.0, participation. I've written in the chat just a second ago to try to get anybody that's watching to join us. And I don't see anything yet, but we will give everybody another minute because it is typing and it takes a second. So if there is anything that you'd like to add to our meeting, you can do so in the chat on the YouTube link. Bill, just because we always ask this before exec session, there's no vote tonight after the session, correct?
That's correct.
We won't come back to adjourn in public.
We don't
Still see-
anticipate to.
Correct. Well, if we say it, then we won't. We would have to just table something until next time. I still see nothing there, so seeing nothing, I will move on. Thank you for those that watched. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session. We will take time to discuss the employment history of particular individuals.
I'll move.
One second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And please remember that there's a special meeting on Thursday for the budget
At 6 o'clock.
at 6 o'clock. Chris?